My website sucks. It's full of design flaws, bad web development practices, weird design decisions, improperly used and messy PHP code, bad database design and usage, and looking at it right now, it feels like a complete stranger wrote it. But I suppose that's a good thing in a way because that means I've learned a lot since I made that site, which is why I'm rewriting it. First, let's just look at the design of the website without looking at any code. When you first get to the page, if you know anything about web development, you're like, what the fuck? For one, it's a statically sized web page, but it doesn't fit the 960px standard. What this means is that my website does not dynamically resize as you resize the window. It stays the same size. Websites can do it both ways. The standard width of a website that does not resize width is 960 pixels. This is because it will fit nicely in a full screen window on a monitor with a resolution of 1024 by 768. 960 is widely used, but I broke that rule here. But when I made this site, I knew about that rule. Why did I break it? Well, the main content box is 960 pixels wide. And then you have this sidebar over here for advertisements, so I can get help paying for my website. This might not be so bad if the nav bar and the main box were flush with each other and the advertisement was being pushed off the side, but as it is with a larger resolution monitor, it just does not look good. If I were looking at the page at 1024 by 768, it wouldn't look too bad. You would get all of the main page content, and then you'd have the advertisements kind of off the screen over here. Still, though, you have an incomplete box on the side, and I always hate it when websites have the scroll bar going off the side of the screen. So this is the first major glaring issue with my website. This is the primary reason that I feel so embarrassed anytime someone comes to my page. Another thing I did badly was my nav bar. It's good web development practice to allow people to navigate through your site without having to use JavaScript. Maybe the user is on an old computer, or an outdated browser, or they're just like me and they like to use NoScript by default. My navbar was written to work with jQuery and JavaScript, and without it enabled, you are stuck on the homepage. There are ways you can write your site so that links work normally, but if the page detects JavaScript, it will replace those links with other commands. For example, if you go to a project page like this, maybe the thumbnails will open in just a new window. But if you have JavaScript enabled, it can open in a little modal dialog. This is always how it should be. Your base functionality should be there, and JavaScript should be used to fancy things up, not to be relied on. When I developed this site, I also didn't realize the significance of good URLs for SEO. SEO is search engine optimization, and it's basically little things you can do to make your website more easily found. For example, if you uploaded a video to YouTube of your game development and had no description and no keywords, almost nobody would see your stuff. Having keywords on your videos makes it easier to find with a search, and following some rules with your website helps your site be found on Google and other search engines. The URLs for my website are pretty bad for the more specific pages. The games page is just games.php5, but the tutorials page for beginner's guide is tutobgtgp1.php5. Who searches for those tutorials with that abbreviation besides myself? Nobody's going to remember that. I have this ugly PHP5 extension on all the pages because I thought that I might use JSON for my website, which I didn't. And to use PHP with one-on-one hosting, your extensions either need to be ended with PHP5, otherwise they just end up being PHP4 files, or you can rename the PHP files by editing the htaccess file, but I didn't know how to do that at the time. Almost none of the images on my website have titles. It's good to at least give images titles because it both helps with SEO as well as anyone who might be blind looking at your webpage. All of the project pages have the exact same layout, but are sitting on different pages with duplicated code. Since each page is the same and the text is loaded dynamically, they should have a common layout with the content loaded in. I didn't put doc type tags on my page. Doc tags are information for the web browser so it knows what version of HTML you're using and other relevant information. Just another good practice. It helps your browser render the page correctly. It's also a good idea for SEO for all of your pages to have somewhat different titles. As for the design of the page, I really don't like it. I had tried to make it look like Final Fantasy, but the entire thing turned out to be all dark gray and dark blue. There's not really any contrast at all, and the nav bar takes up a lot of room. It doesn't feel concise or clean at all, and I could have spent a lot less time on the art for the windows if I had used CSS3 instead. I was still learning about good layout and placement of elements during this time, and a lot of the pages on the site have different ways it displays lists of text or just page content in general. I also didn't test it in Internet Explorer at all, but I'm okay with that. Still, with a clean, structured design, there's a higher chance that your page won't look like shit in the Microsoft browsers. I also let my website directory get really cluttered. I throw various folders in the root directory, and I don't clean up abandoned projects. I also have a dump directory, which is full of all sorts of random stuff I never clean out. I need a better way to host my files easily without letting it become a huge mess. Because my website is coded so poorly, but also because I hate how it looks so much, so many things are out of date on the page. The two latest competitions are missing from the community competitions page, and my projects section also is missing my latest game. So that's a rundown of why my website is awful. This is the beginning of a series of videos that I'm planning to post as I rewrite and update my website. Right now, my website is my priority. I don't feel like I can add any new tutorials or really update the page with any new info on video games until I do this. So, right now it's my main focus. So stay tuned if you're at all interested in web development or you want to give me feedback as I'm developing my website. As I go, I'll try to point out why I'm doing this or that, or just try to point out some of the nuances of web development that I learned while I was doing web development professionally.